here's how the leading British intellectual, George Monbiot, characterized Ayn Rand's ideas a few years ago. Quote, for Ayn Rand, the poor deserve to die and the rich deserve unmediated power. Get that? The poor deserve to die, the rich deserve unmediated power. I remember a couple of years ago on Twitter, someone reproduced this myth, Ayn Rand hated the poor. So I gave them this challenge. Find me one line somewhere in the so many books that Ayn Rand has written. Find me one line where you draw the conclusion that she hates the poor, and for every time you find this in her work, I give 100 euros to any charity you want. Of course, I got no answer. But someone might say, okay, Ayn Rand didn't openly said she hated the poor, but maybe if we look at her work, we will see that in her novels, the poor are presented as deserving nothing, and as George Monbiot says, deserving to die. So let's see how Ayn Rand portrays, quote, the poor in her novels. Let's start with the Fountainhead. So the hero, Howard Rourke, is born into poverty. His father is a manual laborer. His father dies early, so Rourke becomes a manual laborer from a very young age. He works in construction. He works through his years at the university. And in his mid-20s, he's still very, very poor because his work is very innovative. Not many people appreciate it, so he's very poor. And at some point, he chooses to go and work in a quarry. Again, one of the most difficult manual labors. He leaves behind architecture for some period because he prefers doing an honest job that will keep him, though relatively poor, rather than compromise his principles. So already here, if for the biggest part of the novel, the hero is poor, we should question this idea that Ayn Rand hated the poor. But here are some more evidence from the Fountainhead that show what a ridiculous statement this is, that Ayn Rand hated the poor. Who are Howard Rourke's friends? One of his best friends is Mike, someone who has spent his whole life being a construction worker. And one of his other very close friends is a starving artist. So how can it be that you hate the poor, but not only your hero is relatively poor, but also his friends are manual laborers or poor? Or what about this thing? At some point, our hero, Rourke, finds himself in a trial and he has to pick a jury. Who does he pick as the people on the judgment of whom he will place his faith? A truck driver, a bricklayer, an electrician, a gardener, and 3 factory workers. So half of the jury in Rourke's trial are quote-unquote poor. And again, we are told to believe that Ayn Rand hated the poor. And just a few words about Atlas Shrugged before I get to you, Mike. In Atlas Shrugged, we see the same pattern. Many of the heroes start being quite poor. Hank Rearden is an example. But also, there is this very captivating scene where the rich executive, Dagny Taggart, she has her own car in the train, her own coach in the train. And as she walks around the train, she notices a poor tramp, someone who is homeless, and the train conductor is about to throw him off the train. Now, this person is as poor as it gets. He's homeless, and his whole property fits in a bag. And Dagny looks at him with sympathy. She stops the conductor from throwing him off the train. She invites him to her coach to dine with him. And she tells him, look, tell me your story, what happened. And she listens with respect because she sees that this guy has dignity, that this guy is someone who wants to work, but just the way things are, for some reasons, he ended up poor. And actually, within some hours, she gives him a job. So looking in the novels, not only I don't see any evidence that Ayn Rand, quote, hated the poor, I see evidence to the contrary. Notice how often we have a character who has a choice to make. And the choice is, I betray my principles, but I get loads of money, or I pass on the loads of money because This means I'm loyal to my principles. And we see that time and again, the heroes in the novels, the heroes of Ayn Rand, actually say, I don't care about money if this money will come at the cost of me betraying my principles. There's the iconic scene in the Fountainhead where Rourke, he even had to sell his watch. He had nothing. He was penniless. And he gets the opportunity of a lifetime, supposedly, to get a commission to build a bank, but to build it in a way that would go against his principles. To put simply, he wouldn't like the building that he would build. And he says, no, you can keep your money. I'm going to go to the quarry. And again, they don't do this because they want to be martyrs, but they understand that the key to being happy in life, to being successful in the way that Ayn Rand understands being successful, is to have some values, some goals, some principles, and stick to them.